How is everyone? I hope everyone is having a fabulous Sunday. Nice and chill, nice and glorious. I'm here with my friend Connor. Hi, Connor.
Hi, Kyle.
You're a nerd.
I'm a total flippin' nerd. I just hope I don't look too oh my goodness, he stayed up until 2:30 last night hanging out with Star Trek nerds.
Yeah, you did.
I'm
did
sure
that.
I still do.
Yeah.
Oh, but you know what? Sometimes
I love it.
That's what the soul needs, though, Kyle.
It absolutely is. Well, and the thing is that Trekkie fandom is so sweet. They are so lovely. And a huge part of it is that they are just based on a world where everyone is in harmony, and their job is to try to help people be in harmony. It is such a glorious mythology. And I'm so happy that it exists out there. It's not like Star Trek mythology has this very optimistic bent, and then you've got Star Wars mythology, which has this very sinister bent. And I'm just I much prefer the Star Trek. I do.
Yeah. The people at Star Trek Mission Chicago, the staff were very pleasant and great, and
nice.
the congregants they are just genuinely kind and nice people, and there's so many smiles and compliments, as people are putting together their costumes, and you just stop and say, I really love your costume, is it okay to get pictures? And I have pictures of two very delightful FedEx from DS9. I've got the most fierce 9-year-old Klingon warrior girl. Just you're surrounded by so much positivity and joy and shared experience, and but honestly, that's why I play D&D also, right?
Yeah.
So because we can do the exact same thing with Dungeons and Dragons. This is that vibe, that Star Trek vibe isn't limited just to there. And I apologize. I said I send you all my love, but I've got some D&D stuff going on today that I just can't miss. I can't miss, but I will. If you're there at Star Trek Mission Chicago, I'm sending all my love to you. I wish I could be there with you today. I hope you get something out of this stream that I get, because it's so neat just to be able to work on the Patchwork Planet and help build it into something that not only your gaming table can enjoy, Kyle, but ultimately that everybody.
Yeah. I love the fact that last week we did a Rogue One where there was one little bit of lore that hadn't yet been answered, and we decided we needed to build a continent out of it.
And it was amazing.
Yeah, I'm so excited to go visit that place.
Right. Oh my gosh, I just want to go around on the Flail Snail Trail.
Yeah, the Flail Snail Trail makes me so happy. Oh my god.
So happy.
Giant tree cities. Bunch of fairies flying around talking with light. I do need to talk to Overisles and see if they can't help me design a linguistic system that is a non-verbal linguistic system. There's for that, because that would be glorious. That would make me very, very happy. Yeah. So yay. And today, so first I want to go through and introduce Connor to the new system. I've created a bunch of nested folders in the Google Drive. And so just sort of let everybody know. And well, I'll show you sort of how the countries is set up a little bit. This is not the country we're going to be dealing with today, but this is the one that I sort of built out. So I'm going to start in the Wonders of the World folder, where we've got like a couple of little documents. Okay. Then we are going to click on, then we've got a folder in there that says continents, because now we have two. We've got Bazaar and we've got Orpheon. Orpheon is the one that is ruled by Nyx that we created last week. But we're going to jump into the continent of Bazaar, which has 7 different countries in it. So there's Baland, which is the animal folk country, Briny Bridge, which is the halfling pirates, Duopolis, which is where we're going to be focusing today on the Kalashtar and Triton split city. There's Jarsai, which is the city of the elementals. There's Nanked, which is ruled by the evil Lich Queen who's trying to take over the world currently in our campaign. And there's Verendeth. Yeah, it's look, if you're going to live for thousands of years, you might as well take over a country or two. You
might as well. You might as well,
Then there's Verendeth, which is the desolate area in the middle of the continent. And then there's Merchantry, which is where this whole thing started. So in the Merchantry folder, you'll find 5 other folders. There's the Demon Bane Mountains, which is where Delver Stream is, which is where our home base is. There's the Fog's Cradle Swamp. There's the Hissing Plains. There's the Orne Olba Forest. And then there's the capital of the country called Joaquin Spiral. We're going to head over to Demon's Bane, just as an example. And inside the Demon's Bane, we've got, I need to add something over here. We are going to add a document titled, if my computer will stop being super slow, Demon's Bane, Flora and Fauna. So we are not going to jump into that right now, but we've got that. Then there'll be a list of the various cities in that area. And right now it's just Delver Stream. And then inside Delver Stream, we're going to have Delver Stream people and Delver Stream places. Right. So that we can talk about the various shops and the various areas of the city and all of that kind of stuff. And yeah, so that's how that's going to work out. So now let's build this out for Duopolis, which is the place that we're going to visit today. And I should probably put in a history document too. So let's do a history document over here. This is going to be Duopolis history. And while we're doing this, hey chat, you gave us some amazing ideas last week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So please don't stop chiming in, because we absolutely love it. And like D&D is a collaborative storytelling process, this is very much a collaborative world building process. So
indeed,
I'm always very excited to have people say, "Ooh, this would be neato."
You don't have to use those exact words, but
you do. Don't lie
to
them.
Okay, take it back. You have to say this would be neato.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has to be, it has to be really accentuated. It needs to be, I just won't respond if it's not like neato. Like if it's not at least a little grating, you know. Here's all right. Let's see. So we've got Duopolis. We'll do Duopolis places and Duopolis people. Now, which would you like to start on? The history, the people, or the places?
So, so I guess I would ask Kyle, since
what?
So
are you actually questioning me right now?
I am going to ask you a question.
Oh my god!
No, it's an important question. Like when we're discussing world building, right? one thing that I always try to keep in mind is what aspect of the story am I going to try to bring out? Am I trying to bring out the history of the space, or the people who live there, or the culture? What is it that I really want to hit my players with? And that's where I start. I'll build everything, the history, the culture. If we're focused on the people, I'll build the history and the culture around them, because that's the element that I'm wanting to share most vividly. And so the question I would ask Kyle, as the person who's on the outside, sort of looking in and asking questions, what is it that you're trying to get across to your players sitting at your table?
Let's see. So, as there is a player here, I think right now, honestly, what I'm trying to get across is the history, so that as the players are moving through the space, they understand what the lore is based on, so that they can make decisions that are going to amplify that lore and thereby deepen their connection to the world, their interaction with the world, and the depth and power of the world itself as they make decisions that change it, you know.
Okay.
So I think that would be the thing. So, all right, so why don't we jump into the history then of Duopolis, shall we? I think that'll be super delightful and fabulous.
Let's do it.
All right. So let me pop that up. Duopolis history. So in this world, there's essentially, I'm splitting history up into sort of 3 different categories, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be, so let me do this as a thing. So the first one is going to be pre-breaking. So the breaking of the worlds is specifically an homage to Robert Jordan, because I love the Wheel of Time series.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they called, like, when all hell broke loose and all the
When
channelers destroyed
the
everything.
wheel stopped spinning and time stopped being circular, right?
There's no. The wheel never stopped spinning. This is the breaking of the world is very specifically when they attempted to invade the Dark One's prison, thereby unleashing the Dark One. And during the War of Power, the final backlash, when the Dark One was being sealed back in his prison, the final backlash of the power was to taint the One Source, the male half of the One Source. And so the male channelers then all went crazy and literally reformed the face of the planet. Like, they rose mountain ranges and emptied oceans and destroyed entire towns and things,
Right.
like literally reshaped the world. And that's the breaking. So the wheel kept turning. There is the ultimate goal of the Dark One is to one day corrupt the dragon so much that he will break the wheel. And then the Dark One will be free. In this situation, it means before when the world existed as it was when it was ruled by a single god and was formed specifically from that god's ideas, and everybody lived for the god. Like, it was a perfect situation where the god got to actually create a world, and then they all got into a fight with each other and used the actual planets themselves as weapons against the other gods, shattering the various worlds. So there's pre-breaking. Then there is, what shall we call that second tier? So it's essentially going to be like right after the breaking up until about 500 years ago.
So
Reconstruction, the era of survival, like
these are good names. Right. So it's because this is the time when, you know, the planet was kind of trying to find its new, like the new stride of things, the new pace of things.
Well, they were
And it,
well. Everyone had no idea. Not everybody knew what had happened. There was a big the one of the big issues was that time for a god is very different than time for a mortal, and
right,
so what seemed like an instant to the gods were like it was literally like the battle for the gods, like between the gods that shattered the crystal sphere and all of that. It for them was maybe 5 rounds of combat.
right.
You know, for the people living on the planets, it was like 50 years. So this was not like a slow thing. The cataclysm kept happening, um, and worlds were shattered over and over again, and then small parts of them were slotted into this new world. Um,
We have some really neat.
ooh, some really fabulous ideas.
Uh-huh.
Let me see.
The
There's all right.
reformation, the rehabilitation, the reconciliation.
Mm, mm, hmm. I'm not sure. I Those are all really good, and I'm not sure if any of them hits it quite right. There's because it was a time of war and strife.
Mm-hmm. So, interest. One thing that I just did. I'm like, this is called the Patchwork Planet, which is based on the idea of quilting, just in general,
Yeah.
taking pieces and putting them together to create a whole. There is a term called the binding. It's the thing that you use to attach the
Ooh,
patches to each other. This
yes, I love that.
it's one of the core parts of like it says any quilt is made up of 5 parts: the top, the batting, the backing fabric, a binding, and a quilting.
The binding, I love that. And this is the age, and then this age, I guess it would actually be 4 ages. There'd be pre-breaking, there'd be the binding now, which is sort of like everything up to about 500 years ago. Then at that point, the wars mostly stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Then everybody sort of retreated. At that point, people had an understanding of what had truly happened. It had taken quite some time, but they did.
Right.
And so then things started sort of getting pulled back together. I think at that point, then it would be, I like the reconciliation. I think that's what. So thank you very much for that. So
Yes.
there's the reconciliation. And then finally, we've got 10 years ago, it was when this planet got opened back up to the multiverse. So I'm curious if this is like what like a newborn child opening their eyes to the universe. Oh God, I feel like this might be the Age of Wonders, either the Age of Wonders or the Age of Heroes. Let me see. Chat, do we have any thoughts? Do we have any fabulous thoughts? The revealing, the reawakening. Ooh, I do like the reawakening. That's
Right. Because
fun.
it's positive.
Yeah. The reawakening. All right, fabulous. So we've got pre-breaking. This book is going to be written 200 years in the future. So this will be 1200 plus years ago. The binding will be 1200 to 700 years ago. the reconciliation will be 700 to 200 years ago, and the reawakening 200 years ago to the present. All right, fabulous. So we've got, I love it, we've got our 4 ages of the world now. Huzzah.
Huzzah.
All right, so let's look at the basic history of Duopolis. Yay. Yeah, yay.
Yeah.
Oh, and thank you for resubscribing, Lando. Lando's been with me since the beginning. He's the one, he's our fabulous, fabulous techie. If we get some L's in chat for Lando, because he is just a glorious person, that would make me so happy. Lando is now at 11 months being subscribed, which means, and that's sort of how we keep track of how long we've been streaming. Like, so since we became an affiliate, which took us, I want to say, like maybe like 3 weeks or something like that. So we've got 1 more month until we've been doing this for a year.
Big anniversary show.
Oh my God. We're definitely gonna need to do like a big old ridiculousness for that.
We could do mimosas.
Oh my God.
So the item that my friend said should be on a menu at a famous fast food restaurant, where you get them to combine orange juice and Sprite.
It's unacceptable.
Mimosas.
That is an abomination. And you should feel shame forever.
I feel no shame with this. This is amazing.
I can't. Anything that glorifies McDonald's is the worst thing I've ever heard. There is absolutely not. McDonald's is one of those things that, like, if they offered me $1 million, to be a sponsor, I might change my tune, because you can do a lot of good with $1 million.
Okay.
But anything less than that.
I'm distracting, but we really should do a year show.
Do a fabulous Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Where we do I think it would actually make sense too. Let me look at the calendar. So it'll be right around May 10th or something.
Mm-hmm.
We do have on the 8th, we do have we've got a show scheduled. We could absolutely do a May 8th thing where you can be here for part of it, since I don't want to take up your whole Sunday, but we could do a much longer stream where it's literally we are going to build out the world. We're going to look at every character that we've ever had in one of our campaigns. Where are they now? What are they doing? I
would really like to do a stream just on celebration.
Right.
What do the people of the Patchwork Planet do in different places to celebrate things?
So we have one that we created, which is the night market, and that is once a year. There's a huge celebration in Merchantry that would be sort of like our Halloweenish. There is where they do giant costume contests, and everybody has these huge it's a huge farmers market set up. Everybody's in tents and stuff selling their wares around the center of the city, and there's just massive celebrations, and all the taverns are full and crazy, all that kind of stuff. So there's that. So we can take that and sort of expand, and that's a continental celebration. That happens in Joaquin Spiral, which is the capital of Merchantry, every year, and you have dignitaries from all over the continent showing up. And it was really interesting because it was the last time any of them saw any dignitaries from Nanked before the war started. So it got a little nutty. Gorf,
that
I think there are 6 rulers in Joaquin's Spiral that are the merchant princes. Um, and I think Gorf, Lando's character, peed on 3 of them that night, got just wasted and just, you know, just urinated on a bunch of dignitaries. I think one of the merchant princes, if I remember properly, was picked up and thrown into a group of dignitaries by one of the characters. They almost burned down the library, called the head librarian's wife a prostitute, and started a riot. So,
okay. Sounds like a party to me.
Yeah, like that's when I leave my players to their own devices.
This is why world building is important, folks. Folks, if you're listening,
oh my God,
that's awesome.
Yes. Yes, Clunch. There will be goat legs now that we know about the amazing demon goat legs. Absolutely, they're so tasty. There's a frying pan. So Duopolis. Let's talk about this. So pre-breaking, you have got there is the planet of the Kalistars, which is we're going to name that the Land of Love, because it was Sune's world that she created, and she had created a whole world of psychic people so that there would be no secrets, because love cannot exist where there is no trust, and they just didn't have to worry about it. No one could lie to anybody else. Everybody was psychic. It's nice. And then there was the world of the Tritons. This was actually 2 separate worlds. What would the world of the Tritons be called? It was an ocean world full of crazy currents and beautiful underwater cities. Let's see. It would be the Land of Love and the Constant Current, I think. I am not married to either of those names, so we can absolutely shift those around as necessary. Let's see. All right, I'm going to pop this over here. All right, so the Land of Love. First, its races were the Kalishtar, and then Constant Current, their races were the Tritons. Let's keep this uniform. Tritons. All right. A little history that is important for building out the city and things like that. In the Land of Love, the cities were initially open and beautiful, very pastoral and open. But then there was the Illithid invasion. And as you know, as mind flayers like to do, they show up to a place and they just ruin everything for everyone because they're awful.
They are awful. I agree.
And they targeted this planet specifically because the Kalishtar were innately psychic. And they thought that by seromorphing these Kalishtar, they could create even more powerful Illithid.
Well, it's possible even that the psychic power of the Kalishtar drew them there, right? They've got
absolutely.
They've got their own psychic senses, and you know they already feed upon the brain and psionic energy just to sustain their life. So that could be like a beacon, like.
I love it. After the Illithid invasion.
And that sets them up to be rivals, right? Like
Change.
antagonists.
Yes, absolutely. So let's do, all right, so major events. We have got major events. There are, let's see, we don't need, I think, to go over the entire history, but as far as this is concerned, the Illithid invasion is definitely drawn by the powerful psychic abilities of the Kalishtar. The Illithid found this world and immediately began to convert the citizenry to slaves and hosts for their tadpoles. The Kalishtar quickly learned to fight back, utilizing their abilities with both martial mastery and magical prowess. Utilizing their abilities with both. Sorry, that is a terrible sentence. I should learn to fight back. Utilizing their martial mastery and magical prowess. That's much better, much simpler, and makes sense syntactically. Their martial mastery and magical prowess. Ultimately, this pastoral world of love and openness was converted into a militaristic society in order to survive the onslaught of the aberrations. Fabulous. All right, cool. So that is a thing that happened. And the way that the cities changed was after the Illithid invasion, cities became fortresses stacked atop, became fortresses. Each city had only one entrance, guarded and warded day and night. No creature could enter without having their thoughts scanned and their true form revealed. Each building became the same. And that is important because and Clench, Kalishtar do not have the equivalent of Elder Brains. There will be no Kalishtar tadpoles for you to eat. I'm sorry. Very sorry. For those of you who do not know, Clench was with us on one of our adventure arcs, and it was delightful. We went to Gehenna, which was a uh, because it is like in the description in the Manual of the Planes, it talks about how Gehenna is the place in the lower realms where all of the different demons and devils go if they've been sort of kicked out by their masters, right? That they will just, head off to Gehenna and sort of like lick their wounds. And one of the interesting things about the plane is that it is actually three giant volcanoes that are infinitely tall, and the cities all walk around the volcano. There is no sort of colony that just sits there because there's too many eruptions and rock slides and things like that. So the cities are actually built on these giant contraptions that walk around the plane, avoiding these major obstacles. In our world, they also did a thing where there was magical energy that was given off at certain vents by the volcano, and the cities would go to certain vents at certain intervals and literally bend down and just absorb the magical energy that was coming out of it, and that would get distributed around the city, creating like purple lights and things like that. It was sort of a pseudo electrical situation, and turned out that Gehenna in our world was very much 1940s gangsterland. Everything was very film noir, and everybody smoked cigarettes and had a Tommy gun type thing. So yeah, I loved it, and we met some of our favorite people there, and we got a touchstone there for one of our players, so that's lovely. I can't wait till we get to the history of the planar touchstones. That'll be super fun. All right, so the Illithid invaded, changing it to a militaristic society where it was very difficult to get into any place. Let's see. Before that, when it was very pastoral and open, what does that look like? In thinking, I'm trying to think, were they ranchers? Were they farmers? Did they forage? Like, what was the...
I imagine, and this could be me, but if I had a society, a relatively peaceful society of psychic individuals, they might not ranch. They might not eat meat at all.
Oh, that's true. That's very interesting. And then suddenly when they get here and all of like the land, like the fertile land is just gone, literally disappeared.
Yeah, that would be really tough.
That could also be like a huge thing between Baland and Duopolis is Duopolis, there's like a huge stretch of plains on the border between Baland and Duopolis, and maybe it was like they started cultivating that land, and Baland, the land of awakened animals, was like, get the fuck out of here with that craziness. This is our land. No, we look like animal, so that's one of the whole things with Baland, is that most of these people had never seen an awakened animal. And so when Baland was slotted in, people from all the other countries started hunting the people of Baland, not realizing that they could talk. They just saw an animal and shot, And so like their entire society had to change what it was in order just to survive. It used to be these very carefully crafted ecosystems with predators and prey and all that kind of stuff, and then suddenly everybody was just getting murdered left and right, simply because people did not recognize them as people. And so that could absolutely be a part of it, where it's like they started farming and suddenly there's like these big bears popping over into your fields, just trundling right up to your farmhouse, and you got to defend your land, and you just shoot them. because you think it's a bear that's going to eat your family. And then you learn later on that that was someone's mom, you know, like there's, so I feel like that could definitely be a part of that history. All right, so I like that. So very pastoral. So it's going to be, uh, so cities were built around a central square that was used for everything from weddings to funerals to birthday celebrations. I feel like there would be a lot of celebrations. Like it was just sort of like, it's sort of like at least a couple times a week there would be something, you know, in a land that's where just it's all about love. You know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Excuse for birthday celebrations. There would be parties at least twice a week, and the rest of the time was used to till small plots of land and forage in the gorgeous forests close by. All right, fabulous. So now let's look at what happens if you're invaded by a bunch of psychic monsters, right? Who literally go around and find anyone who's alone, or even if you're not alone, group of people, and just snatch them up and then convert you into one of them. I imagine suddenly there's not a whole lot of farming going on, as you know.
Yeah.
So at that point, what does one do to eat?
You probably aren't farming.
No.
You are used to a largely agrarian and vegetarian lifestyle. I imagine that foraging would become more important because it takes less time.
Yeah.
Than actively farming. It's typically foraging isn't going to be as rich a food source though.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing it would be a time of famine. People were hungry.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing the trauma song.
Right.
You know, like trauma, you know, because it's suddenly you're being hunted and you don't understand conflict. You can't provide the food that you need to survive because they're working on small plots of land. They're probably only producing as much food as they need.
Yeah, no, that was the thing. Like you'd have like your little bit that was like the vegetables that you and your family liked, you know, and then, you know, if you wanted something like, oh, and then, you know, the Joneses over there have the apple orchard because they love apple pies, and sometimes you'd have some apple pie, and you know, then you've got the apiarist over there, and you know, absolutely.
So probably I'd imagine it'd be a time of hunger where they were just eating whatever they could find.
Yeah.
And so and I feel like those that resorted to eating meat would feel shame, right? They can sense the pain that they're causing the animals that they're eating because they're psychic. They know that they're hurting the animals, but they're doing it because they know they need to survive.
I think, let's see. Okay, so during the war, access to open land became impossible as the illithid would swoop in and snatch up anyone who stayed outside city walls for too long. Groups of well-trained hunters would go out to forage, but this was a poor substitute for the, why did I just lose? Cultivated foods that they were used to. I feel like what would happen is that so first there's going to need to come a point where Sune steps in and does something, right? And oh my God, this can be where the bunnies. So there's a special creature of Sune's that we've met that she has in her gardens in Arborea. And it is, let me go see what the actual name is that I created for this. I think it might just be Sune's bunnies. Let's see. Do I have, no, that's not it. Let's see. I've got too many homebrew items now. There's too many to look through. Like all the things from all different lovely places. Let's see. What is gonna be? Okay, there's my planar touchstones, all of my other stuff there. And we're getting close, I think. That's what it's called. It's called a snuggle bunny. And what it is their hair is not actually hair. It is super fine needles that feel like hair. If you stroke them, it feels like hair, but little like little bits at the tip of each hair will sort of break off in your skin painlessly. And when they snuggle you, you just fall asleep because it's an anesthetic. And so yeah, it can absolutely be that like Sune created the snuggle bunny as a way to combat the illithid. There's because illithid, they'll eat brains, and it could very well be that there weren't really like any other major sources of protein, and so it could very well be that as the Kalishtar withdrew and the illithid forces expanded, they would need to find something else. So she sent down these little snuggle bunnies where if they even touch an illithid, the illithid falls asleep. And so they also I just have this image of like the war parties of the Kalishtar taking like each one of them has like a little case that has like 5 or 6 snuggle bunnies in it, and like they would just release them at the edge of the illithid's lair to be sent inside, and they would just follow the snuggle bunnies in, and as illithids would go to sleep, then they'd go destroy the hive. Like this. Oh my God, yes. Okay. Let's see. What I'm thinking is that they let's see. All right, let's see what Chad has to say. There's when the illithids attacked, they were initially overwhelmed because they were such an open and honest culture. They never developed any psychic defenses. Absolutely, they would have been super open about all of that. There is, yes, Alec, we are all obsessed with illithids. I'm right there with you. I have one in one of my campaigns as a character. So um, there's there's yes, Clench is absolutely like the canary in the coal mine. There's
Mhm. Yeah.
as long as the Snuggle Bunnies are still alive, you know you're okay.
Yeah.
There's all right, so but eventually the Kalishtar started eating the snuggle. Some of the Kalishtar started eating the snuggle buns for food, and I think that would split the culture in two. I think there would be the people that retained their, oh, it could be that it split the culture into a magical section of the culture and a martial section of the culture, where the magical section of the culture focused on creation and things like that, so they could create food for their various for their populations. But eventually, it's all. I mean, most if you read most food creation stuff, if it's not, Heroes Feast, everything else is just gruel, essentially. You know, so it could be that these people were tired of just eating gruel; they just couldn't do it anymore. So they started eating the Snuggle Bunnies, and like they were all kicked out of the city because every time you slaughter one, all of your neighbors could feel something dying near them. You know.
Yeah, I did something very similar in a game I was running, and it was very survival oriented. And when they were able to magically create food, I made the food, while it might provide for their basic physiological needs, didn't provide for their psychological needs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It was not tasteful. It wasn't tasty food. It wasn't pleasant food.
Yeah.
It was, like, you just can't wait to get a freshly baked loaf of bread kind of magic food. It's like this, it might even look like, but it doesn't satisfy.
All right, let's see. So eventually some Kalishtar began eating the local wildlife. This split the culture in twain, as each individual Kalishtar could feel the death cry of the animals. All right, so this would be the schism. The society of the Kalishtars was divided in two between those that remained vegetarian and those who began to eat meat. The more martially oriented Kalishtar had learned to deal with the death of others in their conflict with the Illithid, and were made numb to that type of suffering.
Mm-hmm.
While all animals were killed quickly and humanely, it was still too much for most Kalishtar to handle. The magically inclined Kalishtar focused on creation of food through pure magical means, thereby sating the population, though the food was never satisfying. Okay, yes. All right, cool. I liked that. I'm here for this. I'm here for how this is developing. Like, I'm really liking like how, like, if you go to war with somebody, how does this change your culture? Why is this happening? What's going on? Races, cities, major events. Oh, the schism. Sorry, the schism would be a major event. So this all needs to be. There we go. So you'll go there. There we go. All right, that makes sense now. All right. So we've got races, cities, major events, and the next thing will be fauna, and then we'll do flora. So fauna, one is snuggle bunnies.
Of course. We have to have the snuggle bunnies.
Glorious, these glorious bunnies are technically rodents, aren't they?
They are.
These glorious little rodents were both physically beautiful and quite useful in the fight against the illithid. Provided by Sune from her garden in Arborea, these little rascals could put anyone to sleep with a simple touch of their fur. I'm sorry, I am so into this idea of releasing a bunch of bunnies.
What do the bunnies look like, Kyle?
The bunnies are all different colors.
Some of them are like,
there's
because I'm imagining little pastel bunnies. If they have if their touch has a narcotic effect, right? And they're not going to have too much in the way of natural predators, so they don't need a camouflage.
Yeah. They come from a magical garden in the sky, so they're
blues and greens and pinks and
absolutely with and mottled colors. So you've got your ones where it's like a neon green patch over one eye, there's, and then everything else is sort of like this lovely sort of golden color.
I'm here for it.
These glorious little pastel rodents were both physically beautiful and quite useful in the fight against the illithid. Makes me so happy. What is there? Where is, all right, Snuggle Bunny, there's, what's the DC? And it's a DC 17 Constitution save. That puts you, so the description that I created was, anyone that comes into contact with the Snuggle Bunny must make a DC 17 Constitution save. If they fail, they fall into a deep sleep full of wonderful dreams for 24 hours, waking refreshed and invigorated. If they take damage or somebody uses an action to try to wake them, they may make another saving throw. And they each have and these are very basic, CR, this would be a CR 0 or a CR 1/8 creature,
Well, I mean, it's not going to hurt you after you fall asleep.
No, and it literally will then just snuggle next to you. It'll just so I've got Snuggle Bunny, and then I made this other spell for one of my characters called Sune's Swarm of Bunnies. There is, and they are. It is a spell that I think it's like 4th level, I want to say, but the stat block is they've got like 36 hit points. They're the one saving throw they get the extra on is their charisma, which they have a +6 on. They're resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. They're immune to charmed, frightened, grappled, paralyzed, petrified, prone, restrained, or stunned because they're a swarm. They've got dark vision, and their things are they've got warmth. As an action, the swarm can surround a larger, smaller creature. As the swarm shivers and maneuvers around the creature, they generate warmth, offering shelter from any non-magical cold. Innate spell casting. The swarm's innate spellcasting ability is Charisma, spell save DC 13. As long as it has more than half its hit points remaining, the swarm can innately cast the following spells requiring no components. For each spell, the swarm arranges itself in different configurations to induce feelings of friendship and love. In its most powerful configuration, their almost divine cuteness can stun an individual. So at will, they can cast Friends, Charm Person, or Charm Monster. Once a day, each they can cast Dominate Beast or Power Word Stun. And Power Word Stun is literally they like form up into like a little heart on the ground, and they all just start wiggling their noses and the tips of their ears, and it's so adorable that people are just like, oh my god. Swarm, they're a swarm. Telepathic Shroud, they're immune to any effect that would sense its emotions or read its thought, as well as all divination spells. And they've got Plant Bane because they're bunnies, so they do double damage to any plant or fungi-based foe. Their attack is their bite, which is pretty intense because it's a whole swarm of divine bunnies. So it's actually 4d6 piercing damage as they just start chewing on you. And then it's got an action called Alter Alignment. The swarm can open its eyes very wide, twitch its ears and whiskers, romp and play within a square of a large or smaller creature. If the creature fails a charisma saving throw of DC 13, its alignment is moved one step closer to chaotic good. Each time a creature fails their saving throw, the next saving throw DC is increased by 2. So Sune has created these very specifically to convert like demons and devils that she finds. Like, you can try to kill this swarm, but if she releases enough of them, eventually you're just gonna want to cuddle. And that's how she uses the power of love to make the plains a better place. That's right. That's right. Oh my God, thank you for rating Games and Tea. Yay! You make me very happy. Welcome, welcome, welcome. As we are currently creating the history of a city called Duopolis right now in our world, which our adventurers are in right now in our Wednesday campaign. And eventually we are going to get to the point where we are actually like creating all of the various members of their ruling council so that my players can meet them on Wednesday. Yay!
Hey.
All right, so we've got the Snuggle Bunnies as the fauna. We have got the separation of the populations. So there was the Illithid invasion, the schism, and then eventually there was the breaking. Okay, so you've got the breaking, and Okay, so the breaking. Um, when this world was shattered in the breaking, only a small sliver remained intact. That sliver held a single Kalishtar city and a small amount of the surrounding countryside. When this city was deposited on into the patchwork planet. When the city was deposited into the patchwork planet, half of the city was destroyed as it overlapped with the sliver of the Triton world's last city as well. So when the two cities, the reason that there's one huge city now of Triton and Kalishtar is because when they both got deposited, half of the Triton city was sheared off by the land of the Kalishtar city. And so the Triton city sort of like landed on top of it, crushing half of the Kalishtar city. So half of each of the cities was destroyed. And for a long time, for hundreds of years, the Kalishtar and the Triton thought that the calamity was created by the other group. So they went to war with each other, creating sort of a no man's land in between their two, like what is now a full city that's starting to grow back together again, but at the time became two separate cities with a huge swath of ruins in the center. All right, so that's the Kalishtar. I feel like that is a very healthy and robust history. You know, we've got reasons that things are happening. Is there anything that you feel like we need to add? Anything that we need to shift or change?
What would their relationship be like with the goddess of love if they became more militaristic?
That's a very good question. Huh.
They're certainly not holding up to the tenets of their faith if their core guiding principle is love. So how would they square that circle?
That's a very good question. I feel like in that situation, in a situation where love is turned back in on itself, or love is forced to make choices it doesn't want to, you know. I think in that situation, just in the mind, it generates a kind of almost narcissism, I would say. an isolation. I feel like that's what it would be. It would be like going through a really bad breakup and literally everyone else in the world sucks. You know, like it's not just a bad breakup, but like the only other choice you have is like a super abusive asshole that you're not going to get in with. There's I think Lando does bring up a very good point, though, that love is protecting those you care about. I think, yeah, I think that the society would turn in on itself. I think, yeah, absolutely, Alec. Like, we are definitely going to, this is something that happens here is I don't believe in building a world that is cute and fun just because. It's like, no, there should be real reasons and real questions should be asked. And I think that's one of the most powerful tools that one has in world building is truly what is this thing? You know, ask the question and really answer it. Don't just be like, let's deflect or something like that, but really look at it. There's, I think it definitely, so you're dealing with a situation where you have been told that you are not, because what I'd like to say is that it was one of the meat-eating cities that actually got transported. One of the more militaristic cities and not one of the ones that's what's sort of adhering to their own protocols. There's, I think in that situation, I think Lando definitely has a bunch of good points that there's, that it would be all about protecting the people who are closest to you, which would be other people in your city.
But I'm gonna push back. I'll push back, Kyle. I've been listening. I'm pushing back.
Okay. All right.
If you're talking about the concept of love as it's depicted in you know the classic polytheistic sense that D&D pantheons are built off of, the goddess of love was not a goddess of war. And while at times she might be petty or jealous, you know,
she's not actively cruel and destructive.
Right. And when you talk about I'm protecting my own at the cost of other people, is that love, or is that isolationism?
Oh my God! So
or is that another sort of ism? That could easily lead, that sort of mentality easily leads to bigotry, which is definitely the opposite of love.
Yeah, I feel like Sune. Give me just a sec. So Sune would have sent the Cuddle Bunnies down as a way, probably to open dialogue. Like, I can put them to sleep for you, and then you can have a conversation when these things wake up, was probably the thought process of Sune. And then what they did was they murdered them instead. You know, like, they're like, no, these are other psychic creatures. We can find a way all to exist together, is probably what the goddess of love would want, right? And then, because they were scared, you know, and with good reason, because Lord only knows that the Illithid probably would not ever actually negotiate, you know, like, but I think there probably would have been, so in the schism, those that, I feel like they would have been split, that the reason that you've got 8 arcane casters as the 8 most powerful people in the Kalashtar city is because the vegetarians were the clerics and they use their divine magics to protect their cities, right?
Right.
And as the other Kalishtar got further and further away from these concepts, their clerics lost power. And so they had to turn to arcane magics. And I feel like in that situation, they would have been less successful against the Illithid, because the Illithid have arcane magic, but they don't really have clerical magic. They don't have divine magics. So the divine magics just would have been, fundamentally more powerful against them, because the Illithid did not understand them. Let's see, okay, so those that remained under the watchful eye of Sune were gifted with more powerful divine magics to keep the Illithid at bay and protect their own people. Those that continued waging war against the Illithid lost the boons of Sune and turned to arcane magics to continue their battle. All right. Yes. I really like that. And all of Sune's temples were, oh my God, it makes what happened two Wednesdays ago so much more powerful, I think, because that would mean that, so what happened a couple of weeks ago on the stream was that they were fighting this, the various shape changers from Non-Ked had been creating chaos around the continent by convincing other people to summon the elder elementals, and utilize them to just create horrific destruction in various countries. Not because the elementals are, destructive by nature, but because they are so powerful they can't help but be destructive just by existing in a space. And so they were battling the elder elemental of Earth, and a whole bunch of crazy shit happened where the changeling had been subtly casting Temple of the Gods, and aiming it directly over the center of the city, so that it would, and it was, he had set up a bunch of immovable rods in the air atop the city, so he could actually cast this thing on top of them, and they all had the same command word. So with one word, he could drop an entire temple onto the city, destroying the entire city, right? And that was his sort of backup plan if the elemental did not do its job. And instead what ended up happening is one of my characters converted the temple to a temple of Sune, from a temple of Lulth to an actual temple of Sune, and then put the earth elemental underneath the temple. So now there is a huge, gorgeous temple of Sune on top of the elder earth elemental in the middle of this Kalishtar city. So it's the first time there's been a temple of Sune in a Kalishtar city in 1,000 years. So I'm super excited about this, how this is going. This is, yay! Yay! For things getting tied in and delightful. Clunch, yes. a mind flayer can become friendly through the power of love. Just ask Ethul, who is with us on Wednesdays. He is a mind flayer who, right after their Ceramorphosis, was found by a kindly dwarven cleric and raised to love dwarves and to hate mind flayers, and learned to hide themselves using magic. So it can absolutely happen. But when you and all your compatriots are, but really it can only happen if you are unlinked from the hive mind. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. When you're not thinking for yourself, it's hard.
Yeah. Let's see. It's obviously up to the DM and the circumstances, but I'd imagine it would be very, very difficult, near impossible. They literally have alien brains and are ruled by the elder brain's motion. Yes, they are. So yes, if you're separated from the elder brain, absolutely, you can do that. But it is very difficult. You have to like stun one or something like that, and then go kill the elder brain, and it's just, there's a lot that goes into it. All right, so we've got that. We now have, let's see, all right. So that is, then we have got so we are now currently in the reawakening period. So we have got, all right. So let's head over there. Let's head down the page, and we are going to put the same thing. So races, Kalashtar and Triton. Well, we'll do them on separate things. Kalashtar, Triton. Next, we have got cities. Cities, and that's going to be Duopolis, which literally means two cities. Then we have got major events, and then fauna. Major events, and then fauna. Okay, fabulous. So, major events, the creation of the temple of the heart of stone, which is the planar touchstone that we got in the temple, which makes me very happy. So now all the characters now have their very own planar touchstone to play with, which is exciting. All right, so how do you feel about this history of the Kalashtar homeworld? Are there any other questions that you feel like need to be answered?
I'd like to open that up to the people who are watching.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
If you have any questions at this point, like the big question I saw, the big conflict I saw, I asked about. But if you see anything and you're not quite sure, or you want to know more about it, now's a great time to ask.
Absolutely, because we'll build it.
We'll build it. This is a shared sandbox. I personally don't see any that I haven't considered, but
I'm here for it. Mm-hmm. I like it.
I've already got so many great ideas with what these two peoples can learn from each other, because the Kalashtar have forgotten themselves.
Absolutely. And they were at war with each other for so long. Let me see.
And at war with themselves for so long. Because they really, they had created a world in which they existed in relative harmony, and that was completely lost. They acted against the angels of their better nature.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's so finding that harmony, and it totally makes sense that they would immediately go to war. Like that it was if they'd been trained to be militaristic and to see everything as a threat. Um,
Trauma song.
yeah,
The
yeah,
trauma song.
absolutely. Abandoned by the people that were their kin, threatened by everything else on the planet.
Losing the favor of their god.
Yeah, it's all.
Forced to eat things that psychically cry in their brain as they're eating them.
Yeah, no, that's a thing. That's if your food yelled at you.
Like this is not a group of people who are probably happy, right? So, I see lots of opportunities where they can potentially learn from the Tritons.
Absolutely.
If they can get past the war thing.
Which they do eventually. There is, I think that is going to be one of the most interesting relationships, because we've got a couple of cities where it's like every city seems to have like sort of a different level of like integrated relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've got Balland, where everything is balanced. It's a very well put together ecosystem of peoples where everybody sort of has you can definitely like move around in the city, and you don't have to be part of the profession of your tribe, but there's always a place for you. Like the Minotaurs are the miners, and the Leonin are the apiarists, and the Kenku are the engineers, but you can have all kinds of different creatures in those jobs, but those are the ones that are sort of like, this is what we've been doing for 1,000 years. We're really good at it. We're born to it. So like there's, I think, then you've got merchantry, which is all about economic balance, where everybody is taught to have something that other people want and to trade fairly for it, so that there is always an economic balance and people can move up or down as long as they make good decisions. There's then you've got Jarsai, which literally means bad neighbor, and it's the 4 elemental genasi races that were all sort of thrown together as an experiment on their homeworld, which was all 4 elements, and have had to sort of just deal with each other for 1,000 years. And it's all political intrigue and, like weird customs that are that don't make sense anywhere outside of your quarter of the city. And then you have Non-Ked, which was a hive mind for 1,000 years, So yeah, I'm loving that this is another really fun way to look at it. Okay, so we've got all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the Tritons. Let's look at the history of the Tritons. I'm very curious about this, because honestly, I haven't done a whole lot with this. Like the Kalistars, we'd sort of fleshed out a little bit, but the Tritons, I don't know.
Does the Triton portion of the city that was blended reside under the water?
Yes.
Okay.
So the plan of this this changeling was to actually, they had created a huge summoning circle and faced it downwards, because this was an earth elemental. So they summoned it directly into the center of this huge cliff. So the way that the city is set up is there's like this big cliff that juts out, which is the thing that like sort of shattered part of the Triton city. And there used to be a huge section of the Kalistar city that was up on this cliff overlooking a beautiful ocean. And they summoned this earth elemental into the center of this cliff, hoping that just by it moving around and existing down there, that the cliff would shatter, essentially. Not only destroying, did we suddenly get a bunch of people?
We did.
Malakisa! Hi, Mally! I'm sorry that it's all it's oops all DMs over here. So there's no you can't give Jinx points to us for anything today. I appreciate Malakisa for the fact that she's always on the DM side when it comes to either helping or hindering players. You make me very happy, Malakisa, when I'm a DM. You make me very sad when I am a player. Because she will very often come into the Denasi Gamer stream that I'm in on Wednesday mornings and just give Michael all of the Jinx points, so that every time we try to do something fabulous, Michael's just like, Jinx, nope. You got a really good roll. Nope. Oh my gosh. But welcome. We are currently creating the Patchwork Planet. We are actually building the world. Right now, we are working on the city of Duopolis, which is a bisected city full of Kalishtar and Triton. We've just finished creating the history of the Kalishtar for the last several thousand years, as one does. And now we are moving on to the Tritons. So very excited about that. And let me see. So with the Tritons, theirs would have been a world that was just a water world. It's just a huge ocean, right? I feel like their god would have been like a sort of Neptune type god, right? That was both could be both very gentle and giving and kind, and also tempestuous and violent and destructive, so
like what, Deep Shalicious, the god of the water.
From, yes,
the realms.
Yes. Yeah. Deep Salicious?
Salicious is the elvish god of the oceans, and it embodies both the giving nature of the water as well as the more mercurial elements, and the destructive elements of the water.
Oh, apparently it is the Seldarine god.
Mm-hmm. Yep, Seldarine god. Seldarine is the elvish pantheon. That's what Seldarine. Yeah.
Which used to include Lolth until she betrayed all of them and tried to murder her.
It still includes Lolth. Let's just be real.
You're a shark or a dolphin, Alec.
We're not here to call names.
Right.
But yeah, like that's sort of the idea of the King Neptune, the god of the ocean, is really embodied heavily in that.
Yeah.
That's that is pretty cool.
So in that situation, the city of the Tritons is literally built of like coral. It has been like there are entire buildings where it's just over many generations. They have cultivated coral in very specific ways and using magic helped it to grow and all that kind of stuff, with these huge sort of kelp forests around. In these, because they are underwater, and it is, while there are currents, they're like the things are helped to be supported by the water itself. It's all these sort of very delicate sort of minarets and these spires and beautiful things going on. Um,
Do
um,
do any of these particularly tall spires rise above the water?
um, you know what? I'm gonna say they used to, and they were shattered in the war.
Ooh,
That
yeah.
there is. God, I don't want to take yet another thing from Robert Jordan and have like the broken towers of the Triton City.
but
There's,
the Tritons they don't spend their entire life under the water, right? They are completely amphibious, and I can't see why their important structures wouldn't have portions that would even rise above the water, so they could just glance down upon the water and the light reflecting off the water and the natural beauty of that as well.
I think that in this situation, that currently, uh, I think what I'd like to say is that there's not really a need for them to do that anymore now that there's literally land right next to them. That they don't, that they have sort of, that when there was, so let's, all right, so cities. So, uh, hold on just a moment, so cities. On their home world, the cities of shell and coral grew throughout the world ocean. Let's see, there is hundreds of years could be spent growing a single structure. But the city also contained many floating buildings. I want to say, I love the idea of, like, I'm really big on functional vegetation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love, like, one of my favorite things is like when I was living in Colorado, like in the garden, there were very few ornamental flowers. Everything was, I mean, it was beautiful, but everything was functional. It either was there to like help keep insects away or to, do something else, or was edible in some way, shape, or form. There is a, so I love functional vegetation. So I think we can absolutely have like essentially giant lily pads that would like their stalks would
Mm-hmm.
be 1,000 feet tall. there's and they're strong enough, like their structures on top were strong enough to actually build buildings on. So you'd have like the city under the water, which would be created by with the coral and the shells and the sand and all that kind of stuff. And then you would have on top various buildings on these huge lily pads that you no longer have because they can't survive on this new world. That's something that was lost to the Tritons.
Mm. I think that's important, uh, and you're talking about how these buildings are even they take a long time to build, right? It takes a long time for the
Yeah,
vegetation to grow. If they're growing a coral tower that can rise above the waves, or a lily pad big enough to rest buildings upon, that's gonna take a lot of time. And so
yeah,
I'm imagining a group of individuals who are used to thinking over generations,
yeah,
right? Like, and very just patient, and and to go along with that patience, a matching sense of commitment, right?
Yeah.
They, their city probably has long roots. They value things because they've been around for a long time, and things have been around for a long time. They probably value more as a result because they need that commitment to continue to grow in the way that they always have.
Absolutely.
And so I guess I sort of imagine, you're talking about a city where the Tritons don't have to build above the water anymore because they've got these people to do. But I don't imagine a group of Tritons who would be content with that.
Right.
If their buildings were devastated, so the Kalashtar might come to terms with how things are now more quickly than the Tritons, who it's going to take them. They've been living with this relative peace for a few hundred years, and it's going to take them several hundred more before they even begin to touch where they were before all of this happened. I imagine that even though they might use the buildings at the Kalashtar, that their people, they pine for a day when their buildings will rise above the waves too, like they used to, and the lily pads will have the buildings upon them like they used to, and all the things that their cultural memory still has built into it.
Well, that could absolutely be like one of the reasons that the wars kept going as long as they did, is like maybe there were buildings on the lily pads, and the first thing that the Kalashtar did was they killed the lilies.
Yeah, they killed the lilies. They exploded the coral towers. Like they went after the stuff that was easy to get at in the war. So they went after the surfaces above the water.
All right, let's see. So, spent growing a single structure. The city also contained many floating buildings atop giant lily pads. All aspects of the city took the work of generations and the commitment of a whole community. Well, and that could absolutely be like instead of zip code envy, like we have, it could be that was the status. Did you, how big was your house? And how beautifully ornamental, because it's like, if you had like some gorgeous house where there was like a room in it that, belled out, and had all these beautiful carve outs and things, that's probably 3 generations. It's probably 100 years to get your coral to do that.
Or longer.
Yeah. That there is just like, that if your house was stunningly beautiful and ornamented and huge, it meant that you had been in that city for, 1,000 years.
And so I'm seeing a society that is probably, as a result, very averse to violence.
Well, I think in a situation like that, I would push back on that a little, because I think it is, less about being averse to violence in that situation and more being incredibly protective of your home.
Oh, yeah.
So, that there would be, because when you've got a god that is as capricious as salacious is. Is that how you pronounce it? Salicious? I feel like salacious is a good one.
You would.
I do. They're salacious. Deep salacious. There's an there might come some similarities to the Citadel, um, but not like intentional, like we are attempting to like copy that. It's just utilizing the resources that you have, under the waves. What do you build? Um, the I think so. We've got a community that is fiercely protective, and of course there's going to be like giant monsters and things like that, because it's the ocean where you can get giant, truly, like body plans in the ocean just lend themselves to being huge, partially because you don't have to support your own weight, you know so I feel like there would be plenty of dangers that they would have to defend against, on a regular basis. And I don't think that they were the only sentient species. I think that there were probably Sawagan, in there. I feel like there were probably like,
Mermaids.
yeah, merfolk all over the place, sea elves, stuff like that, which we can absolutely add to the city. We can absolutely have like, some merfolk in there, and, some others. But I think that while it would take a very long time to create these things, I think what that would generate is a desire to protect them more and more and more.
Right.
And be I feel like sort of tribal. Like I feel like the festivals of the Tritons would have been like, every year they would happen in a different city, and the city would get to show off how beautiful it was, right? And that was sort of the thing. And there would be these rivalries between the cities, sort of like we have with sports teams now, where it would be, like, well, our museum is much prettier than your museum, and here's why. And it wouldn't matter if it was true, as long as you were, talking up your own city, regardless. There's, I think, I want to say that the cities themselves would probably be very peaceful, but there would definitely be areas in the world that were very dangerous. So you would have a warrior class, or you would have people, assigned as protectors, whatever that looks like.
And I guess when I say averse to violence, I just imagine a group that would be averse to war, as a philosophy, because if they create wars, it's an easy way to
absolute destruction,
to lose the things that they really prize, or the things they actually value. They might even have interesting ways to fight wars, non-violently. Like, we tag people out. It's like a big game of tag.
Right. I feel like it would be like, things would be like that you would have raids instead of wars. And then if there was a big threat, like if there was like a Sawagan community that was getting out of pocket, like and eating a bunch of people, then several cities could come together, and pull their resources to that. You know what? I feel like that's probably how most cities were grown, is that it would be like a family sets up shop in a spot that they like, and they sort of claim an area around it, so they have enough room to grow over the course of time. And then eventually, as they grow and other families around them grow, they would combine their plots into a city.
I can see that.
Yeah. And I feel like there would be I feel like there might be a celebration of like if two cities started like bumping up against each other, you know, because I feel like there would probably be walls. There would be like, you know, city walls that they would have like to defend against various creatures. Um, God, I want to say I have this image of like ironwood kelp, you know, that would be like very, very strong kelp that you would grow into sort of a basket around the city, you know,
Yeah,
so that they're,
because walls would be useless because anything could swim over a wall. It would have to be a dome.
yeah. So I feel like that would absolutely be a thing. Um, there's, all right, so cities on their home world. All right, so we've got, I feel like we're getting to the base of what's really going on. There's, okay. Yes, absolutely, Alec, like 100%. They definitely would have their phase where they would make all these crazy monsters to see what's going on with them, just for fun, just because it looks cool, you know. There's, okay, so we've got took the work of generations of the commitment of a whole community. The cities would be created by combining the familial plots of several groups and joining into a more cohesive whole. They would then create a dome of, and this is where, let's see, fauna and then flora, a dome of, what would we call this kelp, this giant super strong kelp? Chat, any ideas about, like, you know, kelp that's 1,000 feet tall and can be wound into a defensive structure? Corallium. Well, that's the coral. I don't want to confuse people. There is, but I like that. I like the suggestion. There's how about Spider-Man kelp? I got it. Yes.
Greenweave.
Let's.
Because if you were going to make it into a wall, you'd probably weave it.
Yeah.
And you would have to not completely block off all things because you need the current to recycle the water so you can breathe.
Absolutely.
Right, for the health of the community. So you'd probably weave it into some sort of structure.
I feel like if you were doing that, the strongest way to do that would be to weave it into hexagonal shapes, and then to weave like actual doors that would most of the time be open. But if there was an attack, like everyone, you would just go shut them, you know, and it would help direct people, and it would just, you know.
And I love the thought, like 491 Phantom had a great idea with ironweave kelp.
Ironweave, yeah.
But iron doesn't go well with water. If you're talking about strength in underwater, iron isn't the way you go because it just dissolves in salt water.
What doesn't dissolve in? How about silverweave kelp?
Silver tarnishes in water. But it's also not a tough metal When you're talking about the toughest things underwater, it would be stone.
Diamond weave.
Mm-hmm.
We could absolutely do a diamond weave.
And that could also reference the shape of the holes left in the weave.
Emerald weave kelp, since it's green. Give it a corundum, which is just one step below diamond in hardness, you know. Okay. All right. Fabulous. I like it. Emerald weave kelp. We now have in our flora. We're going to have to build that out. Emerald weave kelp. Thank you, chat, for that. Emerald weave kelp. An incredibly strong variety of kelp that generates, that can be woven into city covering defensive structures. Fabulous. They would then create a dome of emerald weave kelp. Fabulous. Okay, so we've got that. That's awesome. And create a dome of emerald weave kelp. Let's see. Let's see. What's next? All right, so many floating buildings, top giant paths. Awesome. They would create a dome of emerald weave kelp. And this is what I was going to say earlier is when a city was large enough to join its neighbor, there would be a huge celebration called the warping of the weave, where undersea druids and other casters would reshape the defensive dome to erase the boundary between the cities, thereby joining them into one. I like that their celebrations come from, because everything seems like it sort of starts with the family. They're very family oriented. I feel like they would probably be ancestor worshipers, that it would be like that's where they get a lot of their power from, not only from their divinity, but from the ancestors. I feel, I feel like it might be names of individual rooms in a building are literally named for the people who died while it was being constructed, and there's one small bone of theirs is inserted into the wall or something like that to keep them there to protect the house. Oh my God. What would that? Okay. I need this to be a new magic thing that is happening. Flora, fauna, magic. A spell called, what would it be? Ancestral Armageddon, where you could take, if you were a family member, you could call on the spirits of every ancestor that had died, like while this building was being constructed, and you could call on all of them to defend and essentially create this huge tempest that would not harm your building, but would destroy anything that came close to it. And it's something that you only did like if there was a dire need. Like this was sort of a, if there was an invasion that was like inside the city, everybody would retreat to their own homes and cast this spell. And depending on how big the building was, you would have, if it's 1,000 feet high, you obviously would have more ancestors, than if it was 100 feet high. And they would just, like, nothing would survive that.
It sounds like a druid version of spirit guardians.
It would be a huge version of that, where it would, just doing, because what does that do? Because Spirit Guardians does necrotic damage, right?
No, it does radiant damage.
Radiant damage.
And it summons the spirits of just spirits. It could be ancestors, it could be angels, it could be. Now, there are like evil, I believe, can do necrotic with it instead. But yeah, it's just it could absolutely embody the spirits of your ancestors.
Yeah, a huge version of Spirit Guardians that grows in power depending on the number of ancestral relics embedded in the walls of the building. All right, fabulous. I just needed to make that happen. All right, cool. So, thereby joining them into one. Let's see. Contains any growing a single structure. As the members of a family died, a single bone of theirs would be embedded in the walls of the building to add their protection to the family. All right, cool. I love it. And I feel like you've got the Kalishtar that absolutely went in the arcane direction. And now you've got the Tritons that I feel like would definitely go in a more clerical direction, where it's all about I would say they are probably astonishing at like divination spells, things like that, because everything that they would cast inside their own home would be amplified by the spirits of all of those, that remained.
Or even abjuration magic, protection magics.
Yes. Piercing the veil, creating the veil and then piercing it. All right, let's see. So races, Tritons, they are adept at both divination and abjuration spells due to their familial connections to their own places of power. I feel like within the reason that the Kalishtar could never really effectively invade, even though they would have had magics to breathe underwater and do combat underwater, is that in these buildings, I feel like the Tritons would have actual layer actions. They're so connected to their own buildings as a family that they would be able to do, like everything would be amplified for them while inside their own city. I think that's fun and delightful. Let's see, there is, what about Emerarudo weave kelp? It's just emerald in Japanese. I will sometimes take from a different language, like Duopolis is obviously Greek, Jarsai is Arabic. There's a part of it is I feel like it is a little longer than I would want that name to be if I'm going to be saying it on a regular basis. There's, let me see. If you put a pizza on a piece, you have two pizzas. But if you put a lasagna on a lasagna, you have one lasagna. That's true. That's very true. I mean, if you put a pizza on top of a pizza upside down, you've got a calzone. So there's that. There's
we are now doing the math of Italian food.
Yeah. No.
Welcome to your world building stream. We're here to tell you how to combine Italian food to make new Italian food.
Yeah, this is really important stuff. People need to know this.
I was going to start asking about food though, which is kind of funny that segue is there.
Are you getting hungry? Is that what's happening here?
I am getting hungry for some salad, Kyle.
Everybody needs some salad.
We've got a group of people who have been engaged in war against their better nature, eating meat against their better nature, and they run into a society of people who initially they distrust. They feel like, you know, they brought this calamity upon their people. You know, when the two worlds collided, and they fought a war, but the people that they're fighting against, Kyle, are really good at aquaculture.
They are.
They can
sushi
grow food
all day.
Well, it doesn't even have to be sushi. Seaweed is very rich in nutrients, and you know, and because you can grow in dimensions that you can't grow on the ground. I mean, they're saying that aquaculture could be a way to provide food for our real planet.
Okay.
Going forward.
Fun fact. At one point, I did design an aquaculture community that would be essentially a sustainable farming community that would be a floating community. Like, they've already proven that it absolutely works in several countries where they've got them, like, they've got communities like they're done, there's no more land to build on in the city, so they literally built a community on the lake, you know, that is a floating community that is attached to all the municipal parts of it, and it's fine, you know. You could absolutely, like, as long as you're not out beyond the continental shelf, you could absolutely create a situation where you have giant kelp forests that would be growing underneath a community. And you can absolutely then cultivate that kelp. And there's like 5 different levels of ecosystems that you can have on that kelp that include, you know, like one of the big ones would be having divers go down and collect all the sea urchins and things like that, because the sea urchins kill the kelp. So which is absolutely, you can take those sea urchins and you can turn them into food. Like you've got like all of the shellfish down at the bottom. Then you've got like your deeper water fish. You've got your upper, like, you know, surface water fish. And you can just constantly be harvesting the top of the kelp, and it'll just keep growing back over and over and over again.
And it grows back rapidly, and it grows back densely.
Yeah.
And this group of Kalashtar who fell into violence as a result of these illithid attacks and lost their way could return to their peaceful vegetarian lifestyle with the help of the Tritons.
Yeah. I feel like they might find a new balance that is a pescatarian lifestyle. You know, like I feel like that they would be okay with that. There is, but absolutely, like, you know, the delightful kelp. I feel like there would absolutely be a market for oh my God! It like a new. I'm loving these. I'm loving these items. There's, uh, we're gonna do items now. Emerald, weave, kelp. An emerald weave kelp cover that is something that keeps your food fresh, and it is incredibly durable. So it would essentially be Tupperware, you know, like, where you could absolutely create like a box with this emerald weave kelp. They would keep everything nice and fresh and delightful. I think that would be super fun. Magical Tupperware. We've got, yes. All right, so we have got, several groups joining cohesive whole. Major events for the Kalashtar. I feel like their history would have been an ebb and flow of a million different things, right? Constantly changing as the god of an ocean would want. So I feel like we can come back to the major events in the Tritons' history. And because they're all about, I don't feel like there would have been like a cataclysmic thing like with the Kalashtar. Like that their history, you know, there's raids, there's growing, there's shrinking, some cities have to be abandoned. Like it's a devastating thing when a city is destroyed or has to be abandoned or something like that. But it's not going to shatter the planet. So I think we can finally move on to what's going on in the city of Duopolis. There is, all right, so we've got the history. So the binding, during the binding, races, cities, major events. Okay, so races would be Kalashtar and Tritons. The city would be Duopolis. And the major event, so in the binding, so that is from the time of the breaking of the worlds to about 500 years after that. Mm-hmm. So major events would be let's call it, because they essentially became one city, Duopolis Civil War. When the worlds of the Triton and the Kalashtar were slotted into the patchwork planet by wisdom, the major cities, the major city of each culture landed atop the other. Each destroyed half of its newly found sister city. While neither group understood what was happening at the time, they understood that their city, and by extension, their entire race, had been devastated. By the other. While this act was accidental, the repercussions were no less real for its innocence. All right. So let's see. We have got, all right, so the two races, let's see. So first, the Kalishtar immediately destroyed any part of the Triton city that existed above the waves. This included the tops of their tallest towers and every single building atop the giant lily pads. All right, absolutely. All right, cool. So we've got that.
Okay.
Let's see, what would be the response of a group of people that knew water? Oh.
They would summon waves.
Yeah. I feel like they would. Let's see, giant lilies, every single.
Waves and storms. Storms coming off the water, waves coming off the water.
The Tritons retaliate.
Crabs.
Oh my God.
Crabs are like, can you imagine giant crabs just coming en masse out of the water and attacking?
Yeah. Gross. Because they'll eat everything.
And it would be horrific.
Yeah. What I will say is that since because they did not bring like their entire ocean with them, that it would be, I feel like there's a couple of things that could happen. Okay, so the Tritons retaliated with summoned waves and storms that destroyed all the remaining Kalishtar buildings near the shore. Two things happened at that point that were not intended but prolonged the war for hundreds of years. First, the minerals in the cliff that the Kalishtar city was built on began leaching into the water of the Triton city and killing the giant lily pads while also bleaching several coral structures, leading to their collapse. The Tritons were convinced that this was some sort of assault, leading to massive hostility. And I love the idea of crabs, but I'm going to make it not their fault. It is the destruction of the ocean floor during the breaking disturbed the habitats of all the shellfish, sending them onto the surface where they where they what? Is there something crazy happening?
Somebody has bought for us to do push-ups.
Oh my God. All right, I will do push-ups in just a sec. Let me get this thought. Let me get this thought out. There is the destruction of the ocean floor during the breaking disturbed the habitats of all the shellfish, sending them onto the surface where they of all the giant shellfish, sending them onto the surface where they rampaged through the city and destroyed a large swath of the population. Yeah, so I feel like it would have been like there were definitely hostilities, and then there was a bunch of shit that happened that they didn't mean to happen, but that nobody was talking to each other, and it just everything starts falling apart. There's all right, cool. So we've got that. All right. Well, I'm gonna go do some push-ups apparently.
How many are we supposed to do?
20.
I'll match you. 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna
to the
do
floor.
it. All right, we're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
Usually being on the floor is more fun, Kyle. Nobody told me how to do push-ups. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
All right.
13, 14, 15,
Right. I hate everyone.
16, 17, 18,
All right.
19,
You can do it. You can do it.
and 20.
Okay.
thank you for that.
Okay. All right. Get the blood flowing there. Do it up. Make it happen.
Okay.
It's all right.
Kyle, nobody told me this was going to involve physical activity.
Yeah, absolutely. We do it right here. I'm sorry. I'm getting ready for my hot daddy summer.
Nice.
All right, so we've got some intentional destruction, we've got some accidental destruction. Let's see. The reconciliation. I want to say, so we've got races, cities, major events. Okay. Who should it be that figures out that the other ones didn't do it?
That the other ones what?
That the other ones are not responsible for this destruction.
The Kalishtar.
Okay, so they're the ones that figure it out.
I feel like they should be the ones that set the path, because they've got a long way to go to get back to where they were as a people. It's not that they're rebuilding their homes the way that they remember them. It's like they have to rebuild their people. And I think that might be a great first step on the road to getting past their collective trauma.
Yeah.
Is realizing that the other people aren't necessarily at fault this time.
So there's, I think, some major events. What I will say is that a Kalishtar priest, one of the very first on this planet, establishes a small temple within the city. As the temple attracts, no, because we're saying that this will be the first time that Sune's had a temple there. So one of the first on this planet. Oop. What? The Kalishtar priest, one of the first on this planet, has a vision of Sune. In this vision, he sees the breaking. Though he tries to explain this to his brethren for many years, it is only believed by a Triton priest. As this Kalishtar begins writing their vision down, the Triton hides and protects this priest. Eventually, their bond becomes love. They decide to utilize this knowledge to end the war and bring peace to their now.
Hello, Raiders.
Oh no, are there more? Are they gonna hold us up?
Suplex.
Well, hi Sensei. We love Sensei. Sensei is delightful. Sensei is a partner with us in the Rolling Together stream team. Yay! I hope that your game was amazing today. Sensei, did you do anything super fabulous? I hope it was glorious. We are currently creating the history of a city called Duopolis in our world called the Patchwork Planet, and it is quite interesting what is developing. All kinds of stuff. Gorgeous. We've got a new kind of plant called emerald weave kelp. We've got a new animal called a snuggle bunny. That's a bunny that puts people to sleep. We've got a huge war between the Kalishtar and the Illithid. You know, self-growing buildings made of coral on lily pads. Just all kinds of delightful things. So welcome. We are going to continue here, but feel free. We love it when people in chat jump in and let us know like what they think about what's going on, or if they have a fabulous idea about something that we can do. Absolutely, we want to hear from you. We have got decide to utilize our knowledge to. So we've got a Kalishtar and a Triton falling in love. Being brought together and to bring peace to their embattled cities. Though the journey to peace took many years, and only one of the couple survived to see the accords signed. The peace was lasting and driven by both love, driven by the journey back to love and to trust. All right, I think that's fun. That's fun and delightful. It's a little thing. It's a little thing that we got there. So, all right. I feel like we have gone through a whole lot today. So we have got, all right, so on the original world, let's recap. And chat, as we recap, let us know if there's a question that you have about it that we didn't answer, if there's something that we didn't really think about that we need to expand on a little further. So we've got the Kalishtar world first. It used to be gorgeous and pastoral. It was a world of psychics where nobody could lie to each other because everybody could just read their own minds, could read everybody else's minds, so no problem there. We have an Illithid invasion, as the Illithid are drawn to the psychic abilities of the Kalishtar. As the Illithid pillaged the world, the Kalishtar began to split into two sections. One that was very militaristic and wanted to destroy the Illithids, and another that just wanted to protect their own homes. So the structures of their cities changed, and they split into two. One that I love this, that the Kalashtar were vegetarians because they could feel the death of the animals that they were going to eat, because they were psychic. And so half of them start, because the Illithid started wiping out all of the farmland and killing anybody that was outside the city walls, they could no longer farm. And what that meant is that some of them started eating meat, which they hadn't ever done before. The people in the cities that retained their vegetarianism just couldn't abide it, because they could literally feel the death of every animal that was happening. And so the entire society split into two. One that was very defensive and maintained their clerical magic, and the other that was very aggressive and lost the favor of their goddess Sune, the goddess of love, and became very arcanely magical and focused in that way. Then comes the breaking of the worlds, where the gods themselves start utilizing the worlds as weapons against each other. And the only city that survives this is a Kalashtar city of militant Kalastars, who are the ones that sort of left the blessings of Sune behind. Then we sort of, crash cut over to the Tritons, and they are on their world, which is a huge ocean, their whole society is predicated on family and ancestor worship, and building their cities over the course of like 100 generations, where their buildings are actually built from coral and from kelp, that is woven and grown over many generations, with some of their buildings being built atop giant lily pads that again take hundreds of years to actually grow to the surface and then spread out in a large enough way to be constructed upon. So all of this would have to be very carefully maintained, and very carefully planned. And then the breaking comes, and these two cities, one built of coral, one built of stone, fall onto each other as they're all slotted into the patchwork planet. A war breaks out between the Kalashtar and the Tritons because they don't understand what has happened. They think that the destruction was caused by their neighbors. Then they start actively destroying each other. Then there are some accidental things that happen simply because they live next to each other, like giant sea life running away from a destroyed biosphere, and rampaging across a city on the land. And like minerals from the land leaching into the ocean water around them, poisoning all kinds of things that were not used to that kind of sediment in their environment. So then eventually you have the first priest of Sune appear about 500 years after the breaking. It took that long to start getting back to their faith. This priest of Sune has a vision of the breaking. Sune's finally like, oh my God, thank you for listening. Here's what actually happened. Like, there's now seeing a dozen worlds all shattered at the same time probably would be a little difficult to both comprehend and to process. And none of the Kalashtar would listen. So they went to the Triton city and found what would become the love of their life, another priest down there. They begin writing out the visions, trying to like put it together in a mortal brain, something that a god just handed you. And eventually they do help everyone in their cities understand that this was not the fault of the other people, that this was something out of either of their control, and that now it's time to come together and to actually start building their city together instead of trying to remain two separate peoples. So does that sound, I feel like that sounds about right, that we're about there?
I think that sounds about right. And I guess the question we get back to is, you wanted 8, or 6 people. Six
Eight,
people
yeah.
to sit on a council, one for each type of magic. And
Honestly, I'm not sure that we're actually gonna get there today.
I don't think we
Because
are
we've
either.
got-
We're not going
yeah,
to get to where we want it.
And that's okay. That's okay. Because I got like a fabulous history, which will inform the session on Wednesday. So that'll be delightful. What is something that you want to that you're looking at that you want to make sure is in this history?
I want to make sure that the two groups of people learning to depend on each other for their continued survival. That the Kalashtar can't grow the food that they need on the land anymore because the land has been badly damaged by the war. So they need the Tritons and their aquaculture to survive.
As their peace and love grew, the Kalashtar began understanding the value of the Triton way of life, both their joy in those around them and their aquaculture.
Mhm.
The Kalashtar began moving back towards their ancestral vegetarianism due to the abundance of kelp that could be harvested and processed into very nutritious foodstuffs, while the Triton,
I think the big thing that they lost would be their sense of history, right? So their history is based upon the work of generation after generation after generation. Their cities would have been demolished by the war, and this gives them a chance to recreate their shared history, which goes a couple ways. It's not only through the building of ancestral dwellings, but remember when they come up next to a neighboring underwater settlement, they would build their cities together, and now they're coming up on a settlement. It's not underwater, but they culturally, if they're reclaiming their culture, it would be to create both of these cities as one city.
I'm trying to think.
They wouldn't be able to do it through the emerald weave kelp, but maybe they see, if not physical, a spiritual way to do that, or a cultural way to do that, to take both of those cities and make them one.
Absolutely. I think, let's see, very nutritious foodstuffs. The Tritons so adept at creating form from the shifting waves, learned to do the same with stone now that they had neighbors on land.
Mm-hmm.
They helped to rebuild the parts of the Kalashtar city using city that had been destroyed so long ago, using the remnants of the Triton ruins still left above the waters. By integrating their ancestral homes into the very walls of the city atop the cliff, they gave it both a new found power and a powerful connection to the Tritons. I love that. So we've got everybody getting together, realizing that, okay, you're my neighbor, and I actually am gonna have to look at you. Like, which is delightful, which is just glorious. Anything else that we need to pop in there?
I think the reason why they work together as one metropolis is important, and that gives us a place to go from, I think, next time.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we can talk about like the more recent history,
right? What does it look like now?
What's going on?
Yeah, what did this create in the now?
Yes, absolutely. Let me see. All right, I am going to send a little message to all right, so first off, what is your most favorite thing from today? And I'd like to put this question to chat as well. Of all the things that were created today, what's your favorite? What is the thing that brought you the most joy today as we built it into the world? I can't wait to see these questions. Yeah, and I'm tossing that to you, Connor. What was your favorite?
I think I think everybody finding a way to regain who they were by being willing to meet somebody else, right?
Yeah.
That you can not only expand your view of the world, but use that to rediscover who you actually are. And we've got two people that are doing that with each other, right? We've got the Kalashtar, who basically have fallen out of favor with their god because of the militaristic choices that they made. We're beginning to rediscover a life that is more in harmony with animals and with the environment around them and with the people around them. And then you've got the Tritons, who are devastated, by the war with how they measure their history and their culture, who are finding a way to rediscover that too, in peace with their neighbors.
Absolutely.
So I think that's something pretty powerful if you're trying to tell a story, a fantasy story, to share. You can figure out who you are by learning from other people. Absolutely,
I love that.
I think that's great.
It looks like Lando's favorite is the grown cities
of
the Tritons. Yeah, I really enjoy that as well. It seems to be sort of a theme. Like, we've got all the grown cities on the continent of Orpheon, and now we've got, those are like the above ground giant palm tree cities. Now we've got our coral cities, our coral and kelp cities under the waves, which I adore. Well, Cotton Candy, thank you for joining us anyway, even though you just got here. We love having you. It is fabulous to make us happy. Let me see. I think that I am super happy with everything that we got done today. I feel like it definitely generates a lot of depth for the world that we're going to be in. Um, and let's see. I think we should raid. What do you think?
I think we should go
Oh,
dice first.
Joel's here. Oh, we should. We
We didn't
should.
dice yet.
Who wants some dice? Because everybody, you should be entering by pressing !raffle for some fabulous dice.
Mm-hmm.
You get them from Phoenix Dice, who are fabulous because they make all of their dice out of recycled materials. Because they love the world we live in just as much as all the worlds we play in. And if you win, it's not a specific set of dice. It's literally any set of dice that you want on their entire website. Anything you want. Whatever brings joy to your dice goblin hearts is the thing that you shall get. So, go sign up. Go sign up now.
We had a couple entries last second.
Yeah. And thank you for the follow, Gamer Gal. All right, I think we're going to close up the entries. I think we're going to do it, and we're going to see who wins some dice.
Ooh.
All right, who is it? Oh my God, you won, Silver Moon. So Silver Moon, send me a message over on Discord, or you can send me a whisper here on Twitch with your Discord handle, and I will send you, and I will hook up with you over there, and I will get you hooked up with some fabulous dice from Phoenix Dice. And now, I think it's time to raid, because that's fun. And you get lots of channel points, which you can do fun things when we do our actual plays or our adventure writing. We need to create some rewards here for like channel points, like things like you get to name an item or a place, like you get to name the tavern.
I think that would be fun.
Absolutely. There is raise some money for charity, you know. There's I think since Bards and Brews is not up, I think that we are going to head over to our friends over at Amber the Space Jammer. I think that'll be fun. How do you all feel about that? I hope you feel good about it, because that's what's going to happen. Remember that when we go a raiding, we tell them what we're bringing to the potluck. I am going to bring 2 clerics falling in love over a shared joy of writing. That's what I'm going to bring. What are you going to bring?
I'm going to bring a delicious seaweed salad with an orange vinaigrette.
Ooh, an orange, like a mandarin vinaigrette?
Like a mandarin orange vinaigrette. Oh, yeah.
All right. I'm here for it. Hey, chat, let me know what you're going to bring down in the chat. And then we're going to head off and do some fabulousness over with Miss Amber, who we adore. That's right, a whole outfit made out of that emerald. I'm going to have to make that a fabulous new, like instead of a mithril, like you can have an emerald weave kelp something, you know? Like they would absolutely be like this great armor instead of leather, stuff like that. Ooh. Yeah, you're quite welcome, Chaotic Platypus. And I will see you. That's right, bring your snuggle bunnies. And I will see you next week. Mwah!